Fill her up.
You're listening to the Gas Digital Network.
Good afternoon, Michael Malice here. Let that be your welcome for the next hour. We have with us our special continuing guest, Dave Smith, host of Part of the Problem, 1/3 Legion of Skanks. His comedy special, Libertas, is available everywhere and is highly recommended by everyone who's seen it. And Dave is fresh off another appearance on Joe Rogan, which I have not had a chance to see. That was your first time in Austin to the show.
Yeah.
How did that come about, and how was that experience for you?
Oh, it was great, man. I think it was my favorite time that I've done it so far. It was just, we were just texting back and forth, and he invited me on. But it was the coolest because it was a week after a presidential election following the craziest year, in America. And so it was just like the perfect time.
It would have been nice to be on right before the election, like someone had told him he'd be on, but I guess that didn't happen for some people.
Well, now I just side with Rogan now on everything. And go, well, the thing about me and Joe is it's a tight circle, and we like to keep our friends close.
It is so.
But then you're a dick, and you couldn't just let me have the week. Like, you couldn't just go like, okay, this week was kind of about Dave doing something cool. I fly home. I get off the goddamn plane, get home, and they go, I just see Tim Pool tweet, I'm about to sit down with Alex Jones and Michael Malice. And I was like, are you fucking kidding? Like, if you had said, like, just in hypothetical, like, how could Malice top you this week? I'd been like, there's no way. You have to go on Tim Pool and bring Alex Jones on with him. And you're like, oh, yep. Well, all right.
We're not done. I can't tell you, but I'll tell you off the air. Yeah, but there's more.
No, there's more.
Yeah. Actually, I'll message you right now because I really enjoy messing with the fans and doing inside baseball and them not knowing what's going on.
Are you texting me or emailing me?
I'm emailing you.
Okay.
So, and this is.
Oh, fans hate this so much.
Yeah, I know. And it's really funny because a lot of times they'll be like, oh, what did he text you? And it's like, this is being done on purpose. Like,
you remember like when you were like in middle school and there'd be like a secret or something like that and it would just drive you crazy and then it would never be good. It would never, like, you'd never even care once you found out, but it's just that feeling of like, oh, you're saying something and I want to know it. And it's so fun to be the one who knows it.
You have your email?
Let me pull it up right now. It hasn't come through yet.
Okay, come through. So I have not had a chance to watch it. I don't think I've ever sat through an entire podcast, let alone Rogan. That's 3 hours. No. I've sat through. Have I sat through it? And I've seen you, so I've seen at least one episode of Rogan. But it's a marathon. Like, were you worried this time going in? Was there something that you're like, oh crap, I'm gonna get dinged for this?
Oh, that's so good. Sorry, I just got the email. It's so good. All right, I'm sorry. I completely missed that question. It's so awesome. You guys wish you knew. But you'll know soon enough.
You're not joking, though. It really is awesome.
No, I'm dead serious. But you guys will know soon enough, I guess. Okay, I'm sorry. What was that question? Ask me again.
The thing with Rogan, which is it's so long that and it's such an intimate kind of environment. When I'm there, at least, I completely forget how big the audience is because there's no indication in that room that there's an audience. Like, even here, we've got like our producers like on the Zoom call, so we know there's other people listening in. There you have Jamie in the room, but it really does feel, and maybe that's something he does on purpose, like it's just two guys hanging out having conversation. And every single time I've done it, as soon as the door closes, I'm like, oh shit, what have I said for 3 hours? And like, where are they gonna pull and like mess me up? Was there any of that during this appearance?
Well, there's always like when I was like on my way back to my hotel, I was like thinking about it, I was like, man, was that good? Like, I don't even know. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know. I was like, was that good? Did I get? And then it like slowly almost starts coming back to you. Cause like you said, it just feels like you sat down and bullshitted with a guy for 3 hours. And then you're kind of like, right, but this was in front of like 10 million people that I did this. And then I like little parts would come back to me and I was like, okay, I said that. I thought that was pretty good or that was pretty good. And then once it comes out, just like the response was so good from it, that I was like, oh, that's nice. And I haven't watched back the whole thing, but I've watched little clips that I was really happy with.
Yeah. Are you at a point now where you watch yourself on these shows, you don't cringe? Because whenever people start out, certainly this was the case for me, like you try to watch yourself back and you just like want to just jump out a window.
Oh, dude. I mean, watching my stand-up when I first started stand-up was just, I mean, probably the hardest thing to watch I've ever watched in my life. I mean, I'd pause every 10 seconds and just cringe across the room and be like, oh my God, I can't. And especially at first, because you really do suck at first. So you're starting like, and you're terrible at an open mic with 4 people and nervous to be on stage, and watching it back is brutal. So after getting through that, nothing is, is that hard compared to that stuff. There's always, I kind of came to peace a while ago with the fact that there's always going to be something that you'll realize after the fact, oh, I could have said this, or I could have said it this way. I could have done it a little bit different. But I think it's a kind of a necessary thing to get better, to feel a little bit of that burn. But I'm pretty okay with it now. And now probably for the first time, maybe over the last couple years, I can actually watch stuff that I've done and enjoy it and be like, oh, okay, I like what I did there. That was good.
One of the things that because I'm known for being quick. And what people don't appreciate is a lot of times, and I'm sure this is the case with you being a comedian as well, like you're doing skanks for so many years, like you'll say something and it's just a very visceral like punchline or response, and you don't even consciously realize or remember that you said it because like it comes out of the subconscious. It's just like if someone's a boxer, they're not thinking I got to throw a uppercut here. It's just their muscle memory works in a certain way. And so as soon as you say it, you don't remember it. And then later I'll watch them people are like, oh, that was so funny when you said this. And like, that is really funny because I have no memory of saying this at the time at all.
Yeah, lots of things. People will tweet things at me all the time, like something I said on a podcast a couple weeks ago. And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I have no memory of this. You'd have to give me the context and like, what happened? Did I say that? Sometimes people say things, like real fucked up things that I said. And I'm kind of like, oh, did I really say that? Was that bad? Because I really have no idea. It's quite possible.
My favorite moment of this is I have a supporter, Greg, and I was talking with him, and he goes, when you were on Kennedy on this episode with Joanne Nosachinski, and you made this joke, and she reacted in this way, was she genuinely upset? And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about?
I hope not.
I don't know. In this episode of January 26, 2007, I'm like 17. I'm like, I don't know. I can't help you. Yeah. So what were you happiest about that you got to get out over this episode?
The thing that I was happiest about was talking about the war in Yemen.
Okay.
That really, like, I was happy. I think I gave a pretty good overview of what is so fucked up about the situation. And that's a thing where like, I walk away from that and a bunch of people like tweeted me, thanking me for like bringing that up and stuff. And that was just like a thing where I was like, man, it really is top 3, if not the number 1 humanitarian crisis in the world. And the UN called it the number 1, but you might give them an argument with like North Korea or something like that, but
sure,
it's up there with the worst thing that's happening in the world. And like, no one talks about it here. And to be able to bring that up on such a huge platform, that just made me feel like, okay, that was a cool thing to get to like explain to Rogan and to his listeners, like, look, this is what's going on, and this is so goddamn horrible. And to really explain that it's like there are babies dying right now because of U.S. foreign policy, and like that, so I was happy. I was really happy to get that off. There were a couple other like little things. I enjoyed talking about the woke bullshit, and I think that I have a little bit of a different, because like there's a huge woke crowd out there. There's a huge anti-woke crowd out there. But I think that what I was able to say with it was a little bit different than what you'll hear from your average person on either side, which was basically that the reason corporations have bought into this woke shit is basically to compromise the left, so that they've now, JP Morgan Chase can send their white execs to diversity training, and look, they're on the good side. You don't have to worry about them anymore, and stuff that me and you have talked about before. But so stuff like that, there are a few moments like that where it was kind of like, I like the stuff that I feel like I'm adding that you wouldn't get from most people.
Hey guys, Michael Malice here. I want to tell you about today's episode brought to you by Sheath Underwear. I love Sheath Underwear. If you go to sheathunderwear.com, promo code Malice20, you get 20% off your order, and you'll get the most comfortable underwear you'll ever own. This is your chance to get in my pants, which is not exactly a seller's market, let's be honest. Here's the thing with Sheath Underwear. It's a great gift for the holidays, for the man in your life. They have women's underwear too. I don't know how that works, because the thing about Sheath is that they have a dual pouch. So for dudes, they've got a pouch for one part of your anatomy and another part for another part of your anatomy. You don't have to use it, but I do, and I enjoy it, and it makes wearing the underwear a different experience. You have to try it, because when they brought it to the studio, I was like, what is this? And now I wear it every day and swear by it. If you go to sheathunderwear.com and use promo code Malice20, you get 20% off your order. It's the perfect underwear for working out. And I swear by that as well. Let's get back to the show.
I saw on my locals group, malice.locals.com, that your part of the problem Facebook group got nuked.
Yeah.
Do you know what happened there? Were you given any warning?
So basically, it's been like for the last year, it's kind of been like ratcheting up. And so there's just been more and more, like this used to very rarely happen, but then this year, like every day I'd wake up with Facebook notifications that something was removed for going against terms of service, or it was always a fake news thing. And it was always about COVID. It was always people posting videos about the doctors who are against the lockdowns or things like this. And I thought it was really creepy. I talked about it a lot on Part of the Problem. And then they about maybe a month and a half before the election, they made my group, they made me have to approve.
It's not unique to you, by the way. That's universal now.
This happened to a lot of groups, but they made it so that you have to approve the comments, which I hate. Because my whole thing about the group was always that it's a free speech platform. Like, that's in our little world, you can say whatever the fuck you want to.
Because now they're making you responsible personally for everything.
Well, right. Yeah. And it felt like a honeypot. Like it was like, you're making me approve this speech.
Because it's also like saying I approve this comment should be up there for I agree with it, which is not the implication at all.
Right. And I remember back at the very beginning of the group, there were like a few, which I guess is not that uncommon for a libertarian group. But there were a few people, like 3 people in the group. And there's a group that was up to around 1,500 members when we got nuked. But there were like 3 people in the group who went alt-right, or whatever you want to call it, kind of went like neo-reactionary right-wingers, which is, I guess, in a libertarian group, in this time period, you'll have a few,
Yeah.
And they would, post arguments about why libertarianism is insufficient and why you need kind of more right-wing authoritarian policies and all of this. And there would be posts about the JQ and posts about, race realism and shit like this. And there were people, some of the libertarians in the group, who asked me to boot them. We're like, hey, listen, this guy's saying racist shit. You have to kick him out. Like, this is horrible. You don't want that. And I always maintain, I was like, no, I'm not kicking anyone out. I'm not kicking you out for having the wrong opinion. I'm not kicking someone out for making an argument. I was like, you know what? Go win the argument. Go argue with him in the comments. If what he's saying is so stupid, make him look stupid, And so I liked that about the group. I liked that it was like, no matter what your position was, you were cool here. Like, you can speak your mind. Anyway, so then the group was just gone. No notice, nothing. It was just gone. Like, just couldn't get into it. And everybody was like, what the fuck happened? What's going on with the group? Then it came back. Oh. With no explanation, just back. And we're like, okay, we're back. And everyone's like commenting in the group. Hey,
and was everything populated? Like all the old posts and all the old comments?
All the old posts are there, everything. And we're like, we have risen, and making all these jokes about how it's back. And then it's gone again, this time with the notice that said that it's something, I think it wasn't me, but maybe Brian or Robbie, because they're admins on it also, or moderators, whatever. And so they said they suspended the group. One of them appealed it. And they said, it's been appealed for like hate speech or dangerous speech or something like that. And you'll know the results soon. or we'll get back to you soon. And it's been weeks like that with no update.
Wow.
But so we're leaving Facebook. I haven't decided officially what platform we'll go to, but we'll bring it somewhere else. Fuck them.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the kind of thing where it's showing how the point I made for a long time is and this is something I disagree with conservatives, is there's no reason everyone needs to be on the same platform, right? It used to be like, this is the example I always use. It used to be eHarmony and maybe one of these others, OkCupid, and then you have Christian Mingle and farmer dating and whatever. So in the one sense, they would want everyone in one group, and then all you have to do is just have that one by the neck and you're in control of everybody. But there's no reason. This is how the market works. You have different bubbles. And for those of us who want people to intellectually self-segregate, this is going to be a major way forward. And here's another just point about Facebook. You don't have to have any political care whatsoever. This is why I left Facebook. I still have my account, but I don't use it. I just want to be able to see all my friends' updates in reverse chronological order. There's no way your algorithm is going to be able to determine for me accurately, these are the posts you would want to see, and these are the ones you don't want to see. There's no filter is sophisticated enough to replicate that experience. If there's someone I haven't interacted with in a long time, maybe it's like, oh, I haven't talked to them in 3 years. It's good to see that their kid is, hanging out. Like, I want to see that post. Or it's good to see that they're still annoying. I'm glad I don't talk to them anymore. So, but the fact that they don't even give that to you as an option is like, why am I using your service if you've disabled the way that a lot of people would want to use it?
Yeah. I mean, I'm conflicted on the whole, the whole topic. I mean, I get what you're saying, and I do like the idea of ideological self-segregation. But I also think that people like me and you are in the business of red pilling people.
Sure.
And that anything that shuts off our ability or good people's ability to reach other people that they maybe could have reached. Like, look, for example, which somehow we're talking about this and haven't mentioned yet, but your fucking YouTube video with Tim Pool and Alex Jones got pulled. Now,
Yes.
Luckily for you, Tim Pool has a huge live audience. So a whole bunch of people saw it live.
And it's up on BitChute. And
it's on BitChute. But there's no question that taking it off of YouTube kept minimum hundreds of thousands of people from seeing that. And you never know whose moment
100%.
that could have been. And so that part of it really does bum me out. Like, I think back to when I was red pilled, and there were several little moments that had I just not found that video or just not read that article or been watching the TV when this happened, that maybe I don't get, awakened in this way. And so that, is the thing that's the real bummer of it, is that you just don't know, it's like butterfly effect shit. Like, you don't know who you might have reached right there that might end up changing the world in 20 years,
I don't disagree in the slightest. All I'm saying, and I'm not saying you're disagreeing either, I think people underestimate how much these different organizations are shooting themselves in the foot. And let me give you an example. If I'm using Google as a search engine, right? And the search engine is not allowing me to find the information that I want to find for whatever reason, that is not going to draw me to use that search engine in the future, because now it's a hide engine basically. And that doesn't make any sense at all. I want to be able to find information. And the thing is, again, with any algorithm where it's the computer making these decisions, it's going to be sloppy. Let me give you another example. I'm into wet shaving, which is where people use shaving soaps, these brushes. It's the old school kind of shaving. If you try to sell shaving soaps in the shaving soap marketplace that are tobacco scented, Facebook pulls the ad. Like, you can't, because it sees the word tobacco, even though it has nothing to do with the tobacco product. Because of this, there's workarounds. Easy. People just use a picture instead of writing it out, or they use the numbers instead of the letter B, they'll write the number 9. It also is like, why am I, if I had an option of a marketplace that's going to be more user-friendly, regardless of my ideology, this is creating a bad user experience for me. And this is something that I'm saying, not in a political sense, is going to cause these organizations some problems. Here's another example. If I'm a media outlet, CNN, ABC, and there's all sorts of news online that I'm not covering, it's going to draw people who are interested in like things you don't hear in a corporate setting other places.
Yeah. No. Okay. So I agree with that. I do. I think that in addition to that, I think that right now, over the last month and up to this current second that we're recording this, I think in many ways, the social media companies basically went nuclear with their political agenda. They went all the way to we're not, like there's always this balance that the corporate press in general has always had, where they want to be, they want to get their agenda across, but they never want to pull the curtain and let you see that they have this agenda. So it's always a balancing game. And it seems like in some way they just went for it and were willing just to get this win, to get Joe Biden in there, to expose themselves completely. But when you see what they're doing right now with like labeling every one of Trump's tweets as false information and all this shit, it's like, all right, well, Donald Trump got 63 million votes in 2016. He got 72 million votes so far this year. More people have, there's 72 million people who you are letting know we're against you, against your side. And you got to think like on some level.
Let me just add to your point. It's asymmetric. There's no one on the left who has every one of their posts flagged on Twitter.
Yes. Oh yeah. No question about that. And so there's this thing where it goes like on some level you go, this has to be bad business to make the tens of millions of people think that you're against them. And no, of course, I mean, that's like like when you see them, even where they go like, oh, well, this claim is false, or the corporate press doing the same thing, Fox News included, by the way, which is a wonderful red pill for a lot.
By the way, that's what I love when the fucking lefties are like, oh, when you say corporate press, do you mean Fox News? Gotcha. It's like, yes.
No, 100%.
Yeah, like no, 3,000%. Like, are you kidding me?
Like, yes, 100. Yes, and this is the thing that they never. I talked about this a bit on Rogan too, where I was like, yeah, Fox News was never for Donald Trump. They never were. They
were never against the Iraq War.
Oh yeah. Well, oh no, they were the worst. The worst offenders. But they were not pushing for a Donald Trump takeover of the Republican Party, and neither were.
Megyn Kelly and Chris Wallace, by far, were the hardest moderators on Donald Trump in the debates in 2016 and 2020.
And these were people like, look, they wanted Jeb Bush or Marco Rubio to win, but Donald Trump dominated and pushed them into a position where it was like, well, you want to lose your entire audience or you want to get on board with this thing? And so they did, but they were waiting for an excuse to fucking throw him under. Now, it's not everybody at Fox News. There are exceptions to that, but the majority of people for sure. But yeah, you see them pulling away. They was it Neil Cavuto cut off Kayleigh McEnany, McEnany, what her name is, the other day because she was saying there's voter fraud. Well, we can't air that because we haven't verified that it's true. Yet you're like, oh, okay, so that's the standard now.
But it's also insane because she's the press secretary. It's very important to hear what the press secretary is saying, even if she's lying, and be like, all right, this is what she said. Now here for analysis is whoever Brett Baier, and Brett Baier says, okay, here's the misinformation she just said.
So this freaking dumb commie male model, Hassan Piker from the Young Turks, he made a video about me. I responded to it on my last podcast, but he made a video about me on my appearance on Rogan where I was talking about this stuff. And he goes, it was called Right Libertarians Are Stupid, if you're looking for it. I went through it and responded on my last episode. But he said at one point, he goes, oh, so you should just, so you're saying the corporate media should play clips from Donald Trump if he's claiming that there was voter fraud, even when there's no evidence that there was? How about should we give the Flat Earth Society, time on the media? And I was like, yeah, if the president of the United States claims the earth is flat, that's news. Yes, that is absolutely news. Whether it's true or not, it's pretty big news that the president is claiming this.
Yes, of course. I love how they have these rhetorical questions that are absurd. And
you're like, and the answer isn't even what you think.
And it's also, if you're a lefty, shouldn't you be really suspicious of corporations deciding what politicians can tell the masses? Isn't that historically and correctly where leftists are terrified of corporate power?
Yeah, he's not even good at what a leftist should be good for. This is what I said. He's straight up a communist. Like he's described himself that way before. And he was saying at one point that he said that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. And I was like, dude, if a commie can't even be good on not trusting the CIA and blaming Russia for everything, then what the fuck is the point of it? That's like the one thing you'd expect a commie to be good on, would be like, I'm not just going to believe what the CIA says.
How is it, I don't even know what that would mean in this context. Are they saying that when Hunter Biden is taking a photo of his genitals with a ruler, that was a Photoshop?
I don't know.
What does that mean, misinformation in this context?
It's just like a buzzword that's supposed to dismiss the argument. There's no real thought of any of it. It
would be very easy to say that all this talk about Burisma, Ukraine, that's misinformation. Sure, I can wrap my head around that. But to say the laptop is misinformation, these are photographs. Are you saying these photographs don't exist?
Right. Yeah, I don't know exactly what their claim would be beyond that, because they never seem to go beyond that. They never really give you an argument. But anyway, but back to the point of the kind of press censorship, if you're like what you were saying about in social media, where people are smart enough to sniff out that Donald Trump is getting his tweets censored and no one on the left is getting this type of treatment, or no Democrat presidential candidate is getting this type of treatment. If you're going to say, okay, we can't let you hear from the press secretary who's saying there was voter fraud because it hasn't been proven, we haven't verified that. Like, okay, but you guys talked about the Steele dossier for 3 years. No one ever cut away from someone talking about the Steele dossier and said, well, we haven't verified that yet, so we're not even going to let you hear it. No, and you can go down the list of a million different things that have not been verified that'll be, will be aired on cable news. So it's the biggest silver lining of this whole situation is that it's revealing, and I think a lot of people are going to get red-pilled off this election.
Hey guys, Michael Malice here. There's a podcast that you guys will absolutely enjoy listening to, and I highly recommend you check it out. It's called A Neighbor's Choice, and it's hosted by David Gornoski, Gornoski. He calls it an apocalyptic Mr. Rogers for adults. He doesn't tell you what to think. He tells you how to think, something I discuss a lot in my work, as you guys know. It's a live daily show that exposes politics by tracing its roots back to mythology and ritual. And every show provides that missing link between today's fake news and ancient myth-making. You can subscribe to David Gornoski on Apple Podcast. His website is aneighborschoice.com. His YouTube channel is youtube.com/David Gornoski. It features call-in interviews with prisoners serving life sentences for nonviolent crimes. That is really intense and interesting stuff, far better than the garbage that we have on this show. Dave Smith, bottom of the barrel. Let's get back to it.
Let's talk about the election, because we haven't really had a chance that much to talk about it since it happened. I am stunned and shocked and delighted by the extent to which conservatives, after this election, are aiming their ire not towards Joe Biden. Now I sound like him. I'm George Biden, and I'm running for Senate. Their ire is toward not Biden, but towards CNN and the corporate media. Yeah. They didn't miss a beat. They don't really care about Biden. They care about the cathedral. And if you asked me 4 years ago, I would say that's almost an impossibility.
Yeah, it's well, I think probably around 4 years ago was probably the time that me and you realized that things that we might have thought of as impossibilities might be more and more possible.
True. That's
true. That was one of the big moments. That was one of the crazy things. One of the best things about Donald Trump getting elected is just the fact that the corporate press told you there's no chance this can happen. And then it happens. And then you go, well, what else is possible that they're telling me there's no chance of happening? I mean, why do I believe them on anything at this point? And so like the same group of people who thought it was very possible that democracy would sweep the region after we overthrew Saddam Hussein are also telling you, but this can't happen. It's like, whoa, what's going on here? This is kind of what I mean and what I was getting at before, where it's become very apparent, I think undeniable at this point, that there were several groups working together to assure Joe Biden wins this election. And that's why, rightfully, the Trump supporters are pissed off at all of these groups. And yeah, to your point, Joe Biden is almost like the least of it. And by the way, I think Fox News is getting it worse than anybody else.
Yes, they are.
And rightfully so, because they're the ones that these people trust to not be like in lockstep with the rest of the corporate media. So there's something really special happening here. And not to say it's all good. It could go really bad.
Sure.
But Donald Trump was supposed to get wiped out, and the Republican Party wiped out along with him for being tied to him. None of that happened. Donald Trump got millions more votes this time than he did in 2016. He's more popular now with the Republicans than he's ever been. And the dynamic of all of these Republicans trying to push the election, trying to push people to accept Joe Biden as the president-elect, is only going to destroy their own credibility with their base, which I think could be a very good thing.
Yeah, I had a poll. This is obviously very unscientific on Twitter, but like I had two polls, and this is why one was a surprise given the other. Like the first one is like, which do you think is a bigger threat to your children, like the public school system or Drag Queen Story Hour? And that was 50-50, and I was just like kind of sitting there shaking my head, because if they're both, very nefarious, you don't have to take your kids to Drag Queen Story Hour, and it's an hour a month. Whereas this is 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. So just in terms of that alone, number one. But then I had another poll, and I said, who would you rather pick, like the Supreme Court? Or would it be the Democratic Senate majority or the New York Times editorial board? And 90% picked correctly, in my opinion, the Democratic Senate majority. Because they're like, yeah, these people are much closer to what I regard acceptable as the New York Times editorial board. And I was shocked that people realized this. Like Nancy Pelosi, you could say a lot of bad things about her, excuse me. What is going on with me? You know what it is? I had a blood test and they had to stick me twice, one on each arm, and now I'm all woozy and crapping my pants.
Did they give you a cookie or something?
No, it wasn't. I didn't donate. I had to take a blood test, and it was actually very disturbing because I'm pretty veiny, and she comes in, and no one likes giving blood, obviously, and she tries to tap me. I put my music on, and then she's like, "Whoops, I'm gonna have to do it again," and then she's like, "All right." She goes with the other arm, and she's like, clench your fist. She had a thick Chinese accent. Clench your fist, because she goes like, your muscles are too tight, like it's restricting the flow of blood. And I'm like, I don't know what you want. Do you want me to relax, or am I clenching? Like, just please give me the data and I'll respond correctly. She calls in for backup.
Oh,
this dude comes in, and they're looking at my arms, like all the veins, like, oh, what is this? And they literally start yelling at each other, right? Like, it's kind of workplace, like if you and I were like, come on, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, I'm sitting here, I'm about to have needles put into me. You're yelling about how to best get the blood out of my body.
Yeah, please put on a unified front, just for my sake.
But then it's also like, and we need you to relax. I'm like, it's hard to relax when people are screaming at each other about how to get the blood out of me. So I'm still a little kind of shook. I'm not going to lie. My point is, did you see that clip? There was a reporter from, I think it was ABC, at the Million MAGA March, and he got surrounded, and they were just yelling at him, "Go home, fake news, you are the enemy." Did you see this?
I did not see the clip. I heard about it.
Yeah, it was shocking to me, because one of the things is, if the media are going to make it out that they are targeted, that the victims, they feel unsafe, if these people are going to pay the price for being accused of doing all these things, they might as well get the benefit of having the fun of yelling at them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. And of course, it's like this, we're supposed to be so appalled by the Trump, do you remember like where there's like in 2016, the violence at the Trump rallies was a big thing. Right. And then of course, Acosta tried to make it a big thing when they chanted CNN sucks. Like we're supposed to look at these people and think they're just horrible, violent, evil people. Meanwhile, Black bloc groups are literally showing up once the sun goes down to harass families. And we're supposed to just kind of look away from that and not. And I mean, it's pretty hard for me to even understand how anyone can keep that story going in their head.
I think I could tell you how, because I think when people are marginally intelligent, they are trained that it is a sign of being smart to look at data and be like, it's not what it looks like, right? So in their minds, a dumb person takes things at face value, but if there's a story where it doesn't look like what it seems like, that's what the smart approach is, right? So they'll see all this violence, blah, 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 and they get to be the one like, no, it's not what it looks like. It's really a good thing, and here's why. And they get that explanation from the pundit class.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. That makes sense.
I am really looking forward to 2021 politically. I think what your boy, like, let's suppose this is the example I used on a couple of shows, and I'm just ecstatic. Let's suppose it was 2012 and your boy Mitt Romney was elected, and all these I know, right? America would be saved. And all these conservatives were like, "Oh yeah, we beat the Muslim. Go back to Kenya. Blah blah blah. One-term president loser." And then at some point they'd have to wake up and be like, wait, Mitt Romney's going to be our president for 4 years. This is not going to be good. And I think a lot of lefties are going to be really disappointed that this is the carcass they dragged over the finish line.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is one of the fascinating, really, really fascinating things about what looks like Joe Biden, becoming the president-elect. Who the hell knows? But that seems to be what's going to happen. If I had to bet, I would say Joe Biden will be installed January 20th as president of the United States of America. And it's like the one thing that really nobody's spent too much time talking about this year, with good reason, is Joe Biden. Because like everything else is more interesting than Joe Biden. He's the least interesting part of this whole year. The media barely talked about him. He barely campaigned for president. He just hung out in his basement and didn't do, and it was all about Trump and COVID and riots and lockdowns and all these other more interesting things. But now we're left with the story is Joe Biden. So what's going on with Joe Biden exactly? Well, in a year when, there's been like all this, talk about the progressive defund the police, socialism, all the hard left kind of having their moment. Well, look who he's bringing into his cabinet, his transition cabinet already. Yes,
Cindy McCain.
It's a neocon takeover of the Democratic Party, which has really been going on for quite a while. Yes. But this is almost like their day. They're back now. They were supposed to have their Hillary Clinton administration, and now they're back with the Joe Biden administration. There's no outreach to Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders or any of this shit. And in fact, the Democratic establishment is furious at that group, and I think to some degree rightfully so, because there's basically been, since 2016, if you'd say, in 2016, one of the really interesting political developments was that there was a civil war on both the Republican and the Democratic side. And this was really crazy. It was like Donald Trump versus the establishment Republicans and Bernie Sanders versus the establishment Democrats. And Donald Trump won his war and Bernie Sanders lost it. He may have been cheated, but he lost. And now you still have these factions in the Democratic Party, whereas in the Republican Party, Trump took over and destroyed the other side. It's all Trump. But the difference is, and part of this is partly the reason why Trump won, is that the truth is right-wing populism is very popular in the country. Now, I don't know if it's enough to win elections. Maybe Trump lost to Joe Biden, but it's enough to get 70 million votes, like a right-wing populist message. The left progressive democratic socialism is not popular in the country. It's a loser. And the Democrats are looking around and going, dude, we lost every state legislator, or we didn't pick up one. We lost seats in the House. and we're still not in control of the Senate.
Can I say one more thing? CNN, just to build on your point, to give people background, there was an article in CNN, like, how did we get the House so wrong? And it went through all the polls, and I think it was Charles Cook or one of them, I don't have the data in front of me, said that there was like a 1 in 100%, 1% chance, 1 in 100, that the Republicans would pick up seats. They picked up double digits, which is not a minor thing. And at no point in the article does it put forth the hypothesis that there's a significant percentage of the population that regards pollsters as brazen partisan actors and will just lie to them on principle or ignore them on principle.
Yeah,
like that has to be taken into consideration, and they don't even put that out there because that would become a snowball effect for them.
Now, internally within the Democratic Party, and the New York Times had an article about this the other day, they kind of know what's going on here, and the establishment Democrats are furious at the AOC wing, and they're the ones telling them to go running around talking about defunding the police while there's riots out there. Like, are you out of your mind? This shit makes all the woke shit, all the defund the police shit, all the socialist shit, most normal people want nothing to do with it. And
don't even know where to begin wrapping their heads around it.
Yes, that's right. And so this is another thing that's weird. So Biden is going to come in, and whether rightly or wrongly, the lesson from the election to Democrats is, fuck the extreme left wing of the party. They're no good for us. And he's already is Joe Biden, which is basically a Democrat neocon. That's basically what he is. And so he's gonna go full steam ahead with that. And it'll be fun to watch. And also the fact that Joe Biden, I mean, look, dude, he was able to get through this without campaigning. But when you're president, you can't hide in your basement. He's going to have to talk and answer questions and give speeches. And it's going to be hilarious.
Here's something else that's hilarious. The co-founder of Black Lives Matter sent a letter to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris demanding a meeting. And they were basically making the point that, look, we got you elected, and now we have some demands. It's like, good job, Black Lives Matter. You elected a cop. That's really what you wanted. You guys really but it's also funny. It's like, hey, you know how you know when you have leverage? When you could get the person on the phone. When you don't have to send out a public press release that, like, I want a meeting. It was like Stacey Abrams at a certain point. Like, I felt bad for her believing the hype that the corporate media was creating around her, because she'd be like, oh, I'm going to be Joe Biden's vice president. It's like, you're not. Yeah. This is not how you get it. You don't campaign. It's like Hillary, what was her name back in the day, was campaigning to be Catwoman in the next Tim Burton movie. And she went on like the Joan Rivers show dressed like Catwoman. And I'm like, I promise you, Tim Burton is not going to hire you.
Yeah. Well, that's right. And the other thing is that they don't really have any claim for leverage. I mean, the truth is, and this is another just delightful piece of information that I don't, that the press will probably try their best to ignore. But in this year where so much emphasis was placed on racism and, the Black Lives Matter stuff and all of this, Democrats' share of minority voters dropped. More went to the Republicans. It's not clear at all that Black Lives Matter delivered anything to Joe Biden. I mean, like, they got a smaller percentage of the black vote than Hillary Clinton and way smaller than Barack Obama got. So it's actually not clear that Black Lives Matter just shutting the fuck up all year might have been better for Joe Biden than all this stuff. And like, obviously, it makes sense when you think about it. Like, yeah, of course, seeing fucking looting and rioting isn't going to push voters to your side.
Well, especially that's the thing about like how the university mindset works. It's like, you go to Hispanic neighborhoods and tell them it's Black lives that matter, and they're going to be like, yeah, okay, with the upside down exclamation point at the beginning, and they're going to go in the booth and they're going to vote Republican, because it's like, if you tell me Black lives matter, I'm not hearing that my life matters. Right. I'm hearing that I'm going to be number 2 or number 3 in your list.
Yeah, and like a lot of those places that were getting fucking looted or fucking harassed or destroyed had a whole bunch of Hispanic people working in those businesses. And they're like, who cares about them? Like, who's standing up for them? Do their lives matter? Do their livelihoods matter? So it's these things work in not nearly the simplistic way that the corporate press would like to have you believe.
Hey guys, Michael Malice here. Want to tell you about UBDI. If you go to ubdi.com, or you can download UBDI in the Apple Store or Google Play. What is it? What UBDI helps you understand and visualize is data that big tech companies store on you, as you at the same time build a digital asset library only you own, and control. With ubdi.com or the app, you can enter into verified, bot-free tribes of people. You can discuss your latest Robinhood trades with other You're Welcome listeners. You could stream the history of shows you're binging on Netflix. If you're into crypto, you can view what cryptocurrencies other members are trading on exchanges like Coinbase or Gemini. You can ask the whales what they know to give you a heads up. The best part is, with UBDI, you'll make 70% of the profit for any data you consent to share with companies, and you could cash out in precious metals like gold, dozens of cryptos, so you don't have to hold on to any government currency if you don't want to. This is the next gen kind of stuff that I absolutely adore. If you go to ubdi.com or download UBDI in the Apple Store or Google Play, you can learn more. Let's get back to the show.
What are you most looking forward to? What do you think was the funniest moment for you politically in 2020? Can you think of one on top of your head? Because there have been so many, we forget about them.
Oh man, I almost have to like go back through the whole year myself. But I mean, I guess Trump beating COVID so quickly and coming right back out. I mean, while they're all talking about how irresponsible he was, and he comes out and he's just like, "What? It's really no big deal." like that was pretty great. Well, I don't know. What do you think?
Tulsi's a big one. Tulsi and the debates.
Oh yeah, forget that that's this year.
Yeah.
But yeah. What was that in January?
Oh, that was, I guess, was that last year? Because
it might have been December.
It might have been, yeah, because Iowa and New Hampshire are like early this year. That was a big one for me for the campaign, especially because her reaction was, well, I'm a top tier candidate. It's like, that's your damage control instead of like, Tulsi said misinformation. Here are the facts. The guy was in jail because he raped a kid, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like, that's what you do. So that was a big one. The Democratic convention with Billy Porter dancing. That was a really big one for me. It's like, wow. But also how, in terms of like, not humor per se, but a big moment was how, for me, the ideal red pilling does not involve a person having to have any kind of partisanship or ideology, where they just simply have to be like, okay, what I'm being told does not make sense. And for me this year, that would have been how we all have to be quarantined for weeks. And then as soon as there's protests, you got to take to the streets immediately. And then it's like, no, now you got to go back home again. It's like, okay, no matter what, you don't have to have any knowledge about politics to be like, something's not adding up here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, is that, and then, because that to me was the most incredible thing ever, that they'd go, oh, with this huge, we have to give up everything about your way of life because you can't be near people, the virus. And then like, no, but for this, it's cool.
Yeah.
And then
no, not cool, necessary.
Yeah. And then, and it was, I mean, it was like 4 days after they were doing like, oh my God, teenagers went to the beach. We're all dead. Like, we're really scared of this. And then it's like, oh, 100,000 people protesting arm in arm. And that's like, oh, this is great. And then how they tried to go back. Like they'd go, oh, Trump's holding a super spreader event. And you're like, motherfucker, you can't go back to this. You just, like, either they're all super spreader events or none of them are. It can't just be Republican events cause COVID.
Or not just, specifically Trump Republican events. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where are you in terms of optimism, in terms of the future of this country?
I mean, long run, I think there's good reason to be optimistic. Short run, I think things might get, dicey for a while, but I don't know. I mean, I think that there's going to be, well, look, I'm really, really interested in the short run to see what goes on with Donald Trump as a lame duck.
Yeah.
Which
pardoning, if he drops some pardons.
Yeah, well, and not just that, dude. He just fucking, and they're freaking out about this. He really did. This isn't like a joke or just something the media is saying that isn't true. He really is going crazy firing people from the Pentagon and just brought in a new defense secretary. And he put Douglas McGregor at the senior advisor position to the defense secretary. And for people who don't know McGregor, like the reason he put him as an advisor is because I think he knew the Senate would stall if he tried to like appoint him to any type of position. So he just made him the fucking advisor. But this dude is the dude. He is the guy to end the wars. Like, this is the guy that we were all hoping he would have put in. And of course, Trump puts him in now.
Right.
which is just like, oh, like you fucking should have put him in 3 years ago. But he is the guy, like high-ranking colonel, drew up the war plans for like the Eastern European conflict if there was war with Russia. He's like real deal dude, and he wants to end every last one of these wars. He wants all American troops out of Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq, and Somalia. Like that's his thing. He wants them all out. And so it's going to be interesting to see if maybe they got 2 months. They got 2 months. Can you end the wars in 2 months? Will the military drag their feet? What's going to happen here? Very interesting to see.
There's a huge asymmetry because I know what Biden's team was saying, that when he becomes president, they're going to have all these executive orders overturning a lot of Trump's executive orders. And that happens every administration, whatever. But it's a lot harder to send troops back after you've pulled them out than it is to kind of send them there to begin with.
That's right.
It's not something where it's just like flicking a switch and it's like, no, we changed our minds. We're sending them back to Afghanistan. It doesn't work that way. In fact, this happened in 2000 for people who want to look it up. Bill Clinton, on his way out, had all these environmental edicts that's the president could just sign it. And he goes like, okay, well, you can't have any like mercury in drinking water to have some astronomical number. And Bush tried to just undo it. It had been the policy for like a week or like a month. And all the articles are like, George Bush wants mercury in your drinking water, even though it literally had just been there like last week. And he had to reverse himself. So a lot of these things, it's not as simple. Obviously, it helps if the cathedral's on your side. But it's not as simple as being like, no, get off the plane, you're going back. So that is something very hopeful about.
You have to sell a war before you go start it. And this would make Biden restart a war. And there's no question it would, not that it's impossible, but it'd be very, very hard to do.
Twitter is obviously unscientific, but I have enough like boomer cons following me and just Republicans following me that I usually have a representative of that kind of mindset. John Bolton was just on ABC News with Martha Radich, I think her name is. And just talking about how Trump needs to give up and all the Republicans need to kind of tell him, this is over. And it's like, this is the first time John Bolton has advised the president to stop waging war. It was really funny. And I just had a poll. I said, does John Bolton belong in Gitmo? And not only did 90% of the people say yes, last I checked, I didn't get any pushback, like one or two. And I think what we're seeing in the Republican Party, which I am ecstatic about, and I would love to see in the Democratic Party, is this was your big moment, 2008, Rudy Giuliani, America's mayor, versus Ron Paul. And Ron Paul being like, they're over here because we're over there. I was like, oh, that's offensive. And Ron Paul's like, yeah, no, blow me. It's not offensive. And I didn't stutter and I mean it. And no disrespect to you or the people who lost their lives. It's just like, this is what do you expect if you go to someoe's house and start blowing up their neighborhood, that they're going to be like, well, you're the good guys and we're the bad guys, so please kill my children. Right. The fact that Bolton is now so despised within the Republican Party, I think is such a healthy, wonderful phenomenon.
Yeah, the neocons have been pretty much evicted from the Republican Party. And they're back in the Democratic Party where, they, I guess, originally came from. But that is a really interesting dynamic. And I really do think, and I guess I don't know for sure, but I really do think that a lot of that had to do with the groundwork that Ron Paul laid.
Yes, of course.
I mean, Ron Paul, was starting in 2008, and the years coming after that just proved him right over and over and over again. And it allowed Donald Trump, when he stood up in front of the Republican, primary audience and said, we were lied into Iraq and all this stuff. And they were like, yeah, you know what? I think this guy's right. And there's no question that the right wing in America is not looking for another war. And that's a phenomenal development, like an incredible development. You can't sell a war.
Especially the military people. That's the thing. It's not just like pundits. It's like the armed forces, who usually were more than happy to entertain the idea because they were told we need to do this. They're the ones who are like, maybe we don't.
Yeah. It's you're not going to sell a war to the American people without the right wing on board with it. That's like always been a given, that you could easily whip them up into, okay, we need to go fight this war. And without them, it's going to be very, very tough too. So that's really something to feel optimistic about.
And here's something else to feel optimistic about. I got to be on Tim Pool's show doing 9/11 knock knock jokes with Alex Jones and telling him to his face that I have the documents. The fact it was really funny because the moment where I told him the knock knock joke about Building 7 was when the feed cut out on YouTube. And we're all sitting around being like, oh God, they're going to think this is because of that. But it was just absolutely a complete coincidence. Or maybe it wasn't, but it sure seemed that way on our end. And of course, the internet buzz was about that. What people don't know, and I'm happy to reveal here for the first time, is so the whole episode I had all these knock knock jokes I was telling him. And the last one was knock knock, who's there, Bill? Building 7 was a controlled demolition. It was Saudi involvement. I got the documents. I had one more that I had to play by ear. And I didn't do it because Alex was being really cool. But I told him after the show, it was like, knock, knock, who's there? Sandy. And he goes, Sandy who? I go, didn't you get enough trouble with that? But he was being a good sport. So I didn't want to put him on the spot because that's such a complicated, and I know being the subject of lawsuits, he's not in a position to discuss it. Do you have any big, exciting Thanksgiving plans?
No, just Thanksgiving with the family. I will be seeing my whole family. Fuck whatever the rules are. I'll be hanging out with all of them. Yeah.
Can you, I know, but can you the brazenness? Mm-hmm. Do you think people are going to obey these edicts?
No, I don't think so. And I think that even like when you saw like some of those the Biden supporters coming out without masks on after Biden won and being real close to each other. It's like, look, people like to posture. It's kind of like with the woke shit. People like to posture about how they're better than all of this.
It's the age ribbon.
Yes, exactly. But people are human beings. They can't do this. They can't live like this. It's literally, we're hardwired to be social creatures. And so I don't think people are going to follow this stuff. And thank God for that.
Yeah, I think we're going to see what the Republican Party is best. Not saying much, not saying they're good, but they're by far the best when they're in opposition. That's when they really get the pitchforks out and they talk a good game and they're blah, 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 and whatever. And I think we're going to be seeing a lot of these Republican governors being like, nah, we're going to do what we want. And the media is going to have all the numbers about COVID cases spiking and not covering how deaths are the same. And they're going to stick to their guns. Because that is going to validate their opinion when their voters and their base sees that CNN is attacking them.
Yeah, I agree. And I look forward to some of that stuff. I think in many ways, I know that there are a lot of people who are hurt by the election, who are Trump supporters, who are like, and I get that. I've had my heart broken in elections before, like in Ron Paul 2012 broke my heart.
When he won Iowa and they pretended he didn't? Yeah.
And it was, it was like, I was devastated by it. It was really heartbreaking, legitimately. I don't overuse that term.
I'm not trying to be glib, but because this is going to sound sarcastic and it's not. Like, you really thought there was a chance that they would let him have it?
I thought that Ron Paul would have to win dominantly in order for them to be in a position where they couldn't steal it from him.
Okay, yeah, of course.
But when he was polling first in Iowa and New Hampshire,
gotcha.
I thought we had a real chance
That's fair.
that he wins Iowa and New Hampshire. And if Ron Paul wins Iowa and New Hampshire, the media couldn't ignore him anymore.
Yeah, no,
which is
right.
what they were doing back then.
You're right.
I was like, this will be this huge moment, and he can really argue to the American people why we, all these things. We are
all of a sudden things are on the table that weren't on the table before.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very realistic. Okay,
that's what was breaking my heart. Not that he was going to be president or anything like that, But I just like try to say to people, it's like, look, Donald Trump was great for a lot of reasons. He was the troll in chief. He exposed the corporate press. He made people believe things were possible that you weren't supposed to be, allowed to think were possible. But he was never the guy. And you see John Bolton out there who's like, saying all this horrible shit. John, he was made the national security advisor by Donald Trump. I mean, you don't have to understand that much to know you can't put that guy in that position. Donald Trump is what you see is what you get. He is that guy. There's no more to him than that. He is that narcissistic. He is that self-absorbed. He doesn't even really care to stand up when his supporters are being assaulted in the street. Yeah. He's still tweeting about how he was screwed. It's like a guy in a MAGA hat who's bloodied up, and he's tweeting about what gets him, animated. It's like, I was the victim of a witch hunt. They treated me so unfairly. Like, what the fuck? So I know it hurts a lot of these people, but understand Trump may have served his purpose. And I think you're right. We might be better off in some ways with the Republicans back to opposition party, and Trump may have provided an opportunity for some good leader to actually emerge next time around. Maybe not, but maybe.
Okay, we're going to have a prediction. Okay, I talked about this with Tim Pool on his show. Do you think Twitter's going to ban Trump?
Yes.
Okay, I don't think so. So we'll see.
We'll see. I think that I think Donald Trump is going to have to be punished by the establishment in many different ways. I think this is going to mean legally. I think this is going to mean being censored on social media. I do not think they're just going to let this guy go and set up his alternative fucking Oval Office in Trump Towers and claim he's the legitimate president, which he's going to do, and just basically run the presidency from outside of the White House. Like, I don't think they're going to let him do this, and it'll be interesting.
Can you imagine how hilarious it would be if Trump in Trump Tower is appointing people to the Supreme Court as a press release? Oh my God, he needs to do this.
Dude, Lou Rockwell wrote this article, dude. It's so funny. And you could kind of tell that he's goading Donald Trump by speaking to Trump. And he goes, listen, Mr. President, you are the legitimate president, and you clearly won this election, and they stole it from you. So you are the legitimate president, and you need to go set up a separate presidency, and blah, blah, and all of this. And it's just it's just so hilarious. And you're like, oh my God, what could undermine this whole system more than Donald Trump right now just being like, nope, this is all fake. I don't care.
Yeah,
I'm the president. I don't know what you're talking about. Biden
and the Pope.
Yeah, just why not? And it would. And so I don't, because this would be do so much to undermine the system. I don't think they can allow this to happen.
Oh my gosh! All right, Dave, we're running out of time. What has been your favorite part of this interview?
My favorite part of this interview. I guess when you complimented me for being back on Joe Rogan Experience.
Well earned.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
And a very, very sincere compliment. And you are welcome.